So I was very lucky enough to present a documentary on Emmeline Pankhurst, and it was basically called The Making of a Militant. Why did she become a militant? Why did she start? She didn't just wake up one morning and start bombing post boxes. There was a reason to why she became a militant. And so why did this working class woman from Moss Side become the leader of an army of women? And that's what we tried to answer in this documentary. And it's been a massive journey for me. And I know everybody says that all the time nowadays on television, but it really has been a voyage of discovery in finding out a lot about myself, actually, and my attitudes about politics and where they came from. And I think subconsciously they probably come from Emmeline and the radical women of Manchester. It's purely the Mancunian angle, and also the fact that she's a global icon and we don't really know anything about her. We sort of don't know enough about her, really. It's quite a disgrace, I think, in the fact that this is a suffragette city. This is a city, a Manchester city, that bore the daughter that changed the lives of 51% of the people in this country. And we don't celebrate it. There should be bars all over the place called Emmeline and Sylvia and Christabel and Pankhurst Way. It should be everywhere, and it's not. And we wanted to tell that story, and why. And I do honestly believe it's because she was a woman. And I think at the time they were putting statues up and celebrating these things, it just was brushed under the carpet. So now the wind is changing and we are celebrating our suffragette sister. There's a lot of working class women in Manchester, and I think there was a lot of working class women that wanted to look after other working class women, and a lot of middle class women that wanted to look after other middle class women. And I think in Manchester, for some reason, I think it's the Industrial Revolution, actually, they decided that the only way they were going to get good care was to get the vote themselves. And I think that was the fundamental point that changed Emmeline's mind when she became a Poor Lord Guardian, and she saw in these in the workhouses kids as young as 7 with tiny little shift night dresses on, cleaning the floors in the middle of winter. Pregnant women that would be either turfed out in 2 weeks with their baby and nowhere to go, or the child would be taken away from them. And Emmeline decided single-handedly that it was only women that were going to save other women. Well, I think a legacy would be, we've got a lot of work to do. So even though there's amazing production companies, especially in my industry in Manchester now, there's loads of female CEOs, we're still not anywhere near where we should be. And I think a statue that's going to be put up in Manchester will inspire the women, especially the children, the daughters of Emmeline, the daughters of Manchester. I think, consider myself a daughter of Emmeline, to inspire them to move on and to do what they want, to have the confidence, not to be the ones that go, I've got a really good idea, because it takes a lot to do that as a woman, to walk into a production company like I've done and gone, I've got this really good idea, and you've got loads of blokes from Oxford and Cambridge with really posh accents going, no you haven't, and I have, and I know I have, and I've had it loads of times, and it's fine, now I know that. And I think that's what Emmeline will inspire in the rest of the daughters. I can't wait to take my nieces just to show them when the statue's there, to sit on that seat and to tell them the story. It's just amazing, and about time. I think Manchester's brilliantly progressive, I've got to say, in the fact that I've never had any problems really industry-wise in this. I've always got the meetings, I've always got in the door, I've always sort of been able to sit down as an equal with everybody else, and never really thought about it, to be honest. And also Manchester produces dramas which have very strong female leads in them, which inspires young girls with Manchester accents to be the same kind of, be more Emmeline, as we're saying. So I think your daughters will be fine, but I think we've got a long way to go still, and I think we still have to work. And I think events like this, really, it's not about me, it's not about the BBC, it's about producing an atmosphere where your daughters can walk in and feel they're completely equal to not just men, but to the rest of the country. Well, there's a profound thing that we did that unfortunately didn't make the film, because we could have made about 2 hours, and poor Helen had to cut about an hour and a half off. There was a very profound thing that made me want to weep, is that I've been doing this for 20 years now, as you know, and I've been doing this for 20 years now, and there was a question that Emmeline was asked by a house, I think it was House and Home, and it was a female magazine when she moved down to London temporarily, and it said, how do you juggle your family and your political life and your work life? In 2018, get asked that in every single interview I do, still. And you just think, Are we protesting the same thing? And that's the irritation. There's a legacy from Emmeline that she went through that, but sort of fair enough at the time. But we're still answering that same question 100 years later, and that's what we've got to fight against. We've got to fight that the actresses that were age 7 now never get asked that question because it's irrelevant. It's interesting. It wasn't purposely just presented by women. It was about the fact that the social historians that we interviewed just happened to know a lot about this subject. So obviously they were right for the job in a way. There is only one man in the film, but that was it was sort of by accident as opposed to we've completely chosen that. Diversity, though, I believe on screen is absolutely fundamental to this. In fact, why we are still talking about this and why we are still casting 5 white men to 1 woman to maybe the odd person of colour is a joke. You get on a bus in Manchester, you get on a tram in Manchester, and there's all different colours and races and genders and sizes, and you do not see that reflected on screen, and it is a disgrace. It's an absolute disgrace. I'm not saying that every show, if I write a story about a 44-year-old white woman, it's obviously I'm going to play it, aren't I? But I think, you know, if you reflect my friends and my family, we should be reflecting the diversity of that, not just going for who's on the right casting list at the moment. And that's what happens, you know. Agents say, well, if you're having them, you're having this one, and they're predominantly usually middle class and white. And it's wrong. I think it's an inspirational message. I think it's a message to say one person can change everything. And if we stick together, we can really change everything. So your vote is important, massively important. We all think, I'm not voting because it doesn't make a difference anyway. It absolutely does. And I think Emmeline, when you see Emmeline struggle, I think every woman in that room would never not vote again. And man, actually, because I've got 2 sons, and I'm bringing them up as feminists, and I believe that Emmeline's film, I'm going to show them, so it's how important their vote, because they would have been working class boys, and they didn't have the vote either. So for me, I think it's inspirational about legacy, about taking your destination into your own hands. Normal people can change the world.